In July 2019, a detective in Rhode Island told the cameras she had finally solved it. A murder 31 years old. A 10-year-old girl gone since 1988. What she did not say into those microphones were two things. The man being led away in handcuffs had nothing to do with it, and the medical examiner who studied that little girl's body back in 1988 had never once called her death a murder. This is the story of a child who has failed twice, and of a case that, even now, may not be the thing everyone said it was. To understand how it went so wrong, you have to go back to the beginning, to a working family in a mill city north of Providence, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Brick factories along the river, triple-decker houses, the kind of neighborhood where families had run the same looms for 3 generations, and everyone knew the children by name. January 6, 1988. It was cold and already dark when Christine Cole was sent out on an errand. She was 10 years old. Her mother needed a few things: milk and clams for chowder. The market was close, a few short blocks through streets. Christine had walked her whole short life. She pulled on her coat and stepped out into the New England winter. An ordinary trip a child makes 100 times that no one thinks twice about. She never came back. No scream that anyone heard. No struggle that anyone saw. A 10-year-old walked into the dark between her own front door and a corner store. And somewhere in those few blocks, she was simply gone. The search began that night and did not stop. Police, neighbors, volunteers, they walked the blocks, the lots, the riverbanks. They knocked on every door between the Cole house and the market. A 10-year-old does not vanish in 3 blocks. And yet she had. Days passed, then weeks. Winter held the city shut. The flyers faded in shop windows. And still there was nothing. Not a witness who saw her taken. Not a single solid lead. 54 days after she left for milk and clams, the cold finally gave her back. Her body washed ashore at Conimicut Point, on the edge of Narragansett Bay, miles from home, carried there by the winter water. And here is where the story everyone would later be told starts to crack. Because when the medical examiner finished, the finding was not what you would expect for a case a detective would one day call a murder. The cause of death was drowning. The manner of death, whether it was an accident or something darker, was left undetermined. Not homicide, not officially a murder at all. Just a little girl pulled from the bay, with the most important question about her death marked, on paper, unknown. With no manner of death and no suspect, the case did the thing these cases almost always do. It went cold. The years stacked up. Christine's classmates grew up, had children of their own. Detectives who'd worked the case retired. The file moved from an active desk to a shelf, and then to a box. A decade passed. Then 2, then 3. In a city that never forgot her, Christine Cole became something heavier than a memory. She became the question Pawtucket couldn't answer. The little girl sent for milk who never came home. Then, in 2018, the file came back off the shelf. It came back because of a detective named Susan Cormier, and because of a deck of playing cards. Rhode Island, like several states, had printed its unsolved cases onto decks of cards handed out in its prisons. Every card a victim, every card a plea for one inmate to say the thing that cracks it open. Christine was on one of those cards. Cormier looked at her and decided that after 30 years, she was the one who would finally close it. Susan Cormier was a cold case detective with a reputation for closing the unclosable. She believed Christine had been murdered, even if the autopsy never said so. And she went looking for the one thing that turns a belief into an arrest. DNA evidence from 1988 still existed. Decades-old material, preserved, never tested with tools that hadn't been invented when Christine died. Cormier sent it to the state lab, and the lab pulled a partial profile from it. Not a full genetic fingerprint, a partial one. a fragment of a specific, limited kind. But it was enough to point in a direction. It pointed toward a family, and within that family toward one man. His name was João Monteiro, a Cape Verdean immigrant who had lived in the area at the time. To Cormier, after 30 years, the picture was complete. On July 17, 2019, officers arrested him and charged him with the murder of Christine Cole. There was a press conference. There were headlines. After 3 decades, Pawtucket finally had its answer. Except the answer was about to fall apart. And the first crack was in the very science that had named him. The DNA the entire case rested on was what scientists call a partial Y-STR profile. And to understand why that matters, you have to understand what that kind of profile can and cannot. Do a Y profile reads only the male line. It is the same, or nearly the same, for a man, his father, his brothers, his sons, every male who shares his paternal blood. It does not identify a person. It identifies a lineage. So the profile from Christine's case could not actually single out João Monteiro. It could not rule out his brothers. It could not rule out his father or any other man down that same male line. The thing presented to the public as the answer could not even tell those men apart. And then there was the warrant, the sworn document that put him in a cell. It contained a claim about João Monteiro, a specific, checkable claim about where he had been. And that claim was false. So who was the man in those handcuffs? Not the figure from the press release. João Monteiro was an immigrant who had built a quiet, ordinary life in Rhode Island. No conviction for this, no history that matched the headline. A man whose only real connection to Christine Cole was a fragment of DNA that pointed at his whole family at once. And the moment the cameras called him a child killer, that quiet life was over. Neighbors saw the headlines. So did his family. You do not unring that bell. Even if every charge disappears tomorrow, the word murderer has already been printed next to your name. This is the first of the 2 failures from the very beginning of this story. A girl who deserved a real answer was instead handed a wrong one. And a man who had done nothing was made to carry it. Because once the science was actually examined, once defense lawyers and the state's own review looked hard at that partial profile and that false warrant claim, the case did not just weaken, it came undone. When you build a murder charge, the warrant is supposed to be the careful part. It is the place where the state lays out under oath why this person and no other. João Monteiro's warrant did not hold up to that standard. It leaned on the partial profile as if it were a fingerprint. When it was a lineage, it contained that false statement about him. And it left out the exculpatory truth sitting right beside the evidence. The inconvenient facts that pointed away from him. Strip those things out, and there was no case, no witness, no confession, no physical proof tying the specific man to a death that had never even been ruled a homicide. There was a belief, a detective's certainty, wearing the costume of evidence. It would later come out that this was not the only investigation of hers to fall apart under scrutiny. There was a pattern, and João Monteiro was sitting in the middle of it. In January 2020, about 7 months after the triumphant press conference, the state of Rhode Island quietly did the only thing it could. It dropped the charges. Every one of them, the Attorney General's office said there was not enough evidence to proceed. The partial profile could not exclude other men. The case that had made headlines across New England simply evaporated, with almost none of the noise that had announced it. And so João Monteiro walked out, not cleared by a jury after a fair fight. Released because the thing used to cage him had never been strong enough to begin with. The months in a cell did not come back. The headline did not come back. But here is the part that should sit with you. With the charges gone, the official record returned to exactly where it had been in 1988. Cause of death, drowning. Manner of death, undetermined. After everything, no one had actually proven that Christine Cole was murdered at all. João Monteiro did what a wronged man can do. He sued. The federal lawsuit named the city of Pawtucket, named officers including the detective who built the case, and named a forensic scientist from the state lab. Its claims were blunt, that the evidence had been misrepresented, that the warrant carried that false statement, that the facts cutting against the case had been buried. So the arrest could go forward. And in November 2024, just before the case was set to go in front of a jury, the city settled $1 million paid to a man it had once paraded in front of cameras as a child's killer. $1 million is an admission, written in money. It does not say the word sorry. It does not give back the months or scrub the headline from the internet. It says only this: we did something to this man that we were not willing to defend in open court. So strip it all back to what is actually known. On a cold night in January 1988, a 10-year-old went out for milk and clams and did not come home. 54 days later, the Bay gave her back. The cause was drowning. The manner, to this day, is undetermined. Everything built on top of that, the certainty, the deck of cards, the partial profile, the press conference, the arrest, has been peeled away. What is left is the same shape Pawtucket has stared at for more than 30 years. A child lost, a question open, and the cost of trying to force an answer where there wasn't one is its own quiet tragedy. A man's name ruined, a family's years taken, a city's reckoning paid out in a settlement, none of which brought the truth about Christine Cole 1 inch closer. She was failed in 1988 by a death no one could explain. She was failed again in 2019 by an answer that wasn't true. Somewhere out there, the real story of what happened to a 10-year-old girl is still waiting. And the only honest thing left to say about Christine Cole is that we still do not know.